Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you. At the outset, I must congratulate and compliment the team for hosting the Brand Summit. Having been in corporate for more than a decade now, I think opportunities and forums like this provide two-way learning, both for us from the industry to sort of understand perspectives from the student community and from academicians like yourself, and also gives us an opportunity to share our insights and learnings. I remember when I was a student at IIM, I would never miss any opportunity to hear from industry or speakers from external organizations, simply because there is tremendous value to having access to experiences from people who've been there and done it. So I'm going to keep my session short and hopefully interesting and hopefully have your attention. I'm going to be talking about the art and craft of storytelling. I'm going to just call out 4 golden lessons, as I call it, which I have learned in my journey so far. So if you've paid attention to the introduction, I play 3 roles. One is a marketer, one is a writer, and the third is a mother. And trust me, I truly realize the power of storytelling in my role as a writer and a mother, because you know, as much as I try to request, beg, plead my kids to do something, nothing works as beautifully as a good story. So, and I'm sure all of you as students have heard numerous stories from your parents, grandparents, from your professors, from your teachers. The simple reason is storytelling as a format is an engaging way of communication. It helps drive a message, and it's, as a listener, you also have opportunity to sort of experience the story based on your context. So my tryst with storytelling, like I said, I would have told 5,000 stories, and when I say 5,000 stories, this means stories which I've told my kids, stories which I've written through my blogs, and stories in terms of the work that I've done as a marketer. In terms of the stories that I have read or heard, I've been a voracious reader forever in my life, so I would have read about 50,000 stories. But when I was doing this session, I just took a pause and I reflected on how many stories actually made a difference to me, or how many stories do I actually remember? And the number was very small. It was just 50 stories. So I just asked myself, what is so powerful about the stories which left an impact on me? And I'm just sharing with you 4 lessons which I've put together based on all my storytelling experience as a marketer, writer, and a mother. So the first lesson is, who tells the story matters. Why is it important? Because if you look back at your own life, the same story, if it is told by your mother, by your father, it has a different effect on you. The story may be the same, the characters may be the same, the moral may be the same, but you remember or experience a story differently based on who tells the story. So what are the different people who can influence us in terms of storytelling? First is people who are close to us, that is primarily your family and friends. Second is people in power. So people who, when I say power, it means people at work, it means leaders, which could be people who run the Amity institution, or it could be the Prime Minister of India, or it could be Bill Gates. It could be people who've been in a position of influence and power. When they tell a story, when they tell a narrative, it makes a difference. The third aspect of storytelling in terms of who tells the story makes a difference is somebody you admire, which is why there is a huge sort of business or industry around brand ambassadors, through celebrities, through icons, through people who are inspirational in different spheres of life. Simply because that who tells the story makes a lot of difference in terms of what they say, their experiences, their background, and where they come from. So the first lesson is, if you have to tell a story, make sure the right person is telling the story. And this is extremely important in the context of brand communication, whether it is in the context of marketing, whether it's in the context of academics, or whether it's in the context of parenting. Okay, what is the title of the story? So there is this 333 principle of marketing, which says the first 3 seconds of how I engage with you will determine whether you will give me the next 30 seconds of your time. Based on how I engage with you for the next 30 seconds, you will give me the next 3 minutes of your time. In an era where there is explosive content all over the world and attention span is reduced to less than 10 seconds, it becomes very important for us as marketers to make sure that the title of the story is interesting and engaging enough for you to actually read or listen to a story. Okay, so what kind of titles make a difference when you look at brand communication? There are three formats in my experience which work very well. The first is a question. So there is this beautiful article which I read on the internet, which is from a lady called Lisa. She wrote an article which said, what I learned about networking when I asked a stranger for a kidney. So this lady was having a chronic renal failure and she needed to go in for kidney transplantation. Unfortunately, she did not, for whatever reason, it didn't work out for her. She didn't find a matching donor. So she actually, she shared in the story her journey about how she, what she learned about networking with people when she asked a random stranger for a kidney. The title of the story was so fascinating that it compelled me to read it. And it's still stayed with me, though I've read this article 5 years ago, and I'm actually narrating it to all of you. So question is a very powerful way for you to tell a story. Listicles. In terms of consuming content and information, all of us find it easy to, list down 10 points, 10 numbers, 10 questions which come for an exam. There's another beautiful story which has been written by Chris Bogan. I don't know how many of you know him. He's another iconic marketer. He wrote an article which talks about 106 excuses that prevent you from becoming great. Again, it's a fascinating article because it calls out common traps which most of us have in terms of human behaviors and what prevents us from really, going to the next level of success. The third is, when you look at a title, when you look at the name of an article or a name of a story or a name of a narrative, it needs to be unique. So there are two articles which I had written which went viral. One is Lessons of Life No School Really Taught Me. The second was Leadership Lessons from Kids, which is a series that I'm running on LinkedIn, and I've got a phenomenal response for those two articles, simply because the title of those articles itself was pretty unique. The third lesson which I want to call out is, when is the story told, right? So we all have the same story. If I tell you today, you may experience it or you may take away a different lesson, but if I tell you 10 years from now, either the story might be irrelevant or you may take away significant more than what you take away today. So from a brand communication and marketing standpoint, the face of life that your target consumer is very important when you tell a story or a narrative. So I'm sure all of you, when you started your stint in Amity Business School, your parents must have given you a lot of advice and wisdom of how to be good students, how to study. So the point is, you're at an impressionable phase, you're starting a new phase of life. So as parents feel that that's the right time to tell you stories. A new job, when you're getting married, when you become a parent. So the phase of life is very important in terms of when and how you tell a story, and that's an important cue for a lot of marketers in terms of how they plan and face their brand communication. Context and mindset. Again, when you're going through a tough time, if I tell you a story, the takeaway that you will have from that story is very different from how you will experience a story if you're in a different context or frame of mind. Time and day. I find my children to be most receptive if I tell them a story either at the start of the day or the end of the day. So again, from a brand communication and media communication standpoint, ensuring when you narrate a story is extremely important. The last lesson which I want you to think about, or which I will leave you with, is what the story does to you. So in my experience, the true impact of any story or any piece of content, whether it's digital content or written content, is if it can affect your life in three ways. One is it gets you to learn something. Two is it gets you to think. Three is it gets you to feel an emotion. So a very good friend of mine who works, and he's a reputed journalist in Indian media, so he told me, Nischala, in India, for content, for success in content, there is the A, B, C, D, E which make a difference. And any guesses on what A, B, C, D is? Anyone? No response? Anyone wants to try? Okay, so he says in India, the ABCDE which works in content is astrology, Bollywood, cricket, devotion, and emotion. So if you have your content which is tailored around ABC, the chances of it working is going to be very high. And it's true, because if you look back, that's the reason why Bollywood and cricket, in terms of stories around them, icons around, brand ambassadors around these 5 areas are extremely popular. So I'm just going to, end with a good story, which I think brings together different elements of storytelling which I've outlined. And I'd request the team to play the video before we get into Q&A.
ये मैं, ये यूसुफ, नमोदिया यार सी मेरा। लाहौर में हमारे घर के सामने एक बड़ा बाग था। उस बाग का गेट बाबा आदम के जमाने। रोज शाम को हमने वहाँ पतंग उड़ानी और उसके बाद जाके यूसुफ की दुकान से जहरिया चुरा के खानी।
जहरिया?
और मेरा साहब नमस्ते।
नमस्ते। मेरी पोती मुंबई वाली।
और बेटे क्या हाल है?
दादाजान, दिल्ली से किसी की कॉल है।
हेलो।
यूसुफ अंकल?
कौन?
जी मैं सुमन बोल रही हूँ दिल्ली से, आपके बचपन के दोस्त बलदेव जी की पोती। याद है बचपन में आप दोनों जहरिया चुरा के खाते थे?
परिंदों की तरह एक दौर था, मन मोर था, एक दौर था, मन मोर था।
पार्टीशन की वजह से मेरा तो नाते दोस्ताना हो गया। यूसुफ जी, बड़ी याद आती है।
कागजों की कश्तियों में डूब रहता, झांकती खिड़कियों में उलझा रहता। अभी क्या दौर था, मन पे न जोर था, मन मन था, एक दौर था, मन मन था।
हाँ जी। कौन? हैप्पी बर्थडे यारा।
So what did you think of the story? Good one? Sorry? Excellent story. Google doesn't do too many ads, but I think this is one ad which I personally think they've done a fantastic job of storytelling, because they've weaved in a lot of elements. First is the whole India-Pakistan in the background. 2 is friendship. 3 is 2 generations. And they've beautifully used how Google can be used, how power of technology can be used to bring friends who sort of, parted ways several years back. And this video has appealed to, sort of people from different generations, right? So, if you show it to your parents, they'll probably appreciate it because they've lived and seen that era. And people from your generation, you'll probably relate to it because you're able to see how you can use the power of technology for something which brings joy to someone who is dear to you. So I think it's a beautiful story. So I don't think I really want to say anything else, but just in summary, I want to say there are many ways to tell a good story, but I think the three important things to remember is who are you telling the story for, right? Because I'm sure in marketing you've all heard about this, target group and target audience for branding and brand communication. So it is important to know who is your target audience. Second is, why are you telling the story? What do you want a person to take away from it? Are you telling the story for somebody to learn something? Are you really getting them to change the way they think? Or you really want them to feel something when they see the story? And it's okay to just have one objective, but I think when you tell a story, it's important to know why you're telling the story. Last is, how will you tell the story, right? So again, there are too many content formats, whether it's a video, it's a blog, it's a tweet. I saw the other day on Twitter, there was somebody who was trying to tell, the entire story of Ramayana and Mahabharata with a tweet a day, which I thought was fascinating, because at the end of the day, they're using new age technology to sort of tell a story which many people of this generation might not know in entirety. So it's what eventually lasts is how you narrate a story, how you experience a story, and how you live a story. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm happy to take any questions now or at the end of the session. I leave it up to you.